Shalom everyone. Again, this is Amir Tsarfati and this is a Middle East current events update live from Lisbon, Portugal. I'm here for a couple more days. I'll be heading back home to celebrate my wife's birthday, and from there, a day later, head to my speaking tour in Japan, in Australia, and in New Zealand. So, what is it that we have to talk about? Oh my goodness, so many things. First of all, a funny thing. Let's start with some smile on our faces. An Iranian general said yesterday that Israel is stealing Iran's clouds, and that, therefore they suffer one of the most difficult droughts in the last 30 years. And literally, he said, Israel and another big country in the region, and we know he meant Saudi Arabia, that's their biggest ally, their biggest enemy, which is becoming our ally. And it's funny because, you know, we were given many different heroic, attributes, but we never ever we were never accused for stealing clouds from anyone. And it's so funny because even the meteorologists meteorologists in Iran said that that general, they don't even know what he's talking about. But he said that it's proved that all across the area, mountains above 2,200 meters receive snow, and Iran's mountains do not receive anything. He says, we've never had a drought where 98% of Iran doesn't get rain. And of course, this is the attempt to try and sell the Iranian people garbage and lies and deception, because the Iranian regime, instead of taking care of their own people and building desalination facilities and using ocean's water for drinking, instead of doing that, they take hundreds of millions of US dollars every single month and sponsor terrorists all around the region. That is exactly why the riots in Iran do not stop. They continue all around Iran. In some of the cities that are Sunni cities, they are more violent. Other cities like Tehran, they are less violent. But we're talking about people that don't even have clean water to drink. It's not even about the inflation. It's not even about the devaluation of their currency. It's about drinking water that they don't have anymore. That's how pathetic it is. The trillions of dollars that the Iranians were promised with the Iran deal, all the money that they were already given by the Obama administration is not going to better the Iranian people. It is actually going to feed the terrorists and the monsters in Yemen and in Lebanon and in Syria and in Iraq and in Gaza. So we see that the Iranian people themselves understand that they are being fooled by their own regime. That's why, in a very unprecedented manner, the Iranians started chanting in the street, death to Palestine, death to Syria. And in fact, they say America and Israel are not our enemies. Iranian people are saying our enemy is our regime. America is not our enemy. Israel is not our enemy. We see that, by the way. We started a Telegram. Telegram is another instant messaging app. We started a Telegram channel in Farsi, and the Iranians are, by the millions, are logging on to get information all the way from Israeli sources. They understand the Israeli sources will give them way more true and reliable information than their own government. This is pathetic if you really think about it. So what we're looking at right now is that the Iranians are not only being pressed by those the harshest sanctions ever from the American administration, and these things are causing the people of Iran to come out of their houses to the streets, but they're also being pressed by their own people. And you have to understand something. A regime that fears that he's about to be toppled by its own people will do whatever it takes to preserve itself. That is exactly what the North Koreans are doing, and that is exactly what the Iranians are doing right now. And in fact, what is going on in Tehran right now should tell the Bible-believing people all around the world how fast it is for Iran to say, okay, we're joining an alliance to attack Israel. You understand that right now they cannot attack us, at least not directly. They don't know how to, they cannot afford doing that. But when their back will be towards the wall and there's nothing for them to lose, then they will join the coalition of all those who suffer, such as Russia, that is suffering a tremendous economic recession, as well as Turkey, whose lira plunged dramatically. And so we're watching an interesting thing. Yes, it may be about religious matters, but in reality, the bottom line, the entire Ezekiel thing, as Ezekiel himself described, it's about financial gain. It's about spoils. It's about, survival for those countries. And so we're watching it, and it is one amazing thing to watch, to see what the Iranians are doing. It's very interesting that the Iranian president was invited to a meeting with the Europeans and all those who sign on the Iran deal. And I can't understand why the Europeans invite him when they just arrested today an Iranian diplomat in Paris that was at the head of the ring of a terrorist group that was about to launch a terrorist attack in France. You can imagine the Iranians, they don't stop for a second. They plot. In fact, the head of the intelligence of Bavaria, one of the states in Germany, concluded that both Iran, North Korea, and Syria are out there to get nuclear weapon. They're not stopping for a second their efforts. This Iran deal is a bluff. It's a lie, just as I believe the North Korean one. I mean, I'm not living in denial. I understand that Kim Jong-un not yet has given up his plans. I believe that he's still deceiving the world, and he might have to feel some of the fury and fire before he decides to abandon his plans. But one thing is for sure, Iran is still on the path. They reactivated one of their uranium enrichment facility already. We're watching it closely, and we see that they don't waste time. So in Iran, we have amazing riots across the country. The greatest drought in the last 30 years. They don't have rain. They have no water in the tap. And it's very, very interesting what's going on there right now. I wanted to continue also and tell you. So first of all, Israel is being accused for stealing Iran's cloud. So let's face it, we might be great. We might be very, very good in what we do, but we're not that good. We don't steal clouds from other countries that are 1,500 miles away from us. We might be very sophisticated, but we're not that sophisticated. So that's a nice joke, and I believe if you go to the Iranian, the Iranian online cyber world right now is full of jokes about that general. It's quite pathetic to see what they do. Now let's talk about something, unfortunately, more serious. The Russians are conducting heavy bombings in the city of Daraa in the southern part of Syria. Daraa is where all the entire civil war in Syria started almost more than 8 years ago. Daraa is where it started. It started all with a funeral that ended up with a bloodbath of the regime, and that caused everything. Now, I want you to understand that the Russians are afraid that the Iranians will take control of things and cause the Israelis to react, and then everything will go down south. So what the Russians are doing, they're saying, we will run the show. The Russians are bombing from the air, and Russian soldiers or commanders are running the show. They're not fighting. They're running the show as commanders on the ground. They are the ones who tell the Russians Air Force where to bomb, and then they sent the Shiite militias and Assad soldiers to go and fight. The militias are very, very poor in the way they fight. So are the Assad's soldiers. So on the ground, the rebels have some good success. However, the rebels are clueless as of what to do with the Russian heavy bombing. And those bombings, just so you understand, they have been killing civilians by the dozens. We're talking about more than 200 people that died over the last week. Just over the last 48 hours, 80 people died, of which 23 were children. Now I'm asking you, where is the UN Security Council? Where is the UN Human Rights Council? Where is the wall-to-wall condemnation of killing? When Israel killed 95% of Hamas terrorists, the world was saying that Israel is conducting a massacre in Gaza. And when the Russians are bombing villages and towns and they kill scores and dozens of innocent children, obviously they're not terrorists, you know that. No one says a word. So the world in its purest form of hypocrisy is there, and no one, of course, is saying a thing. That I want to say that we're talking about almost 250,000 people that are now fleeing out of their houses. The UN Human Rights Council is now demanding Jordan to open its border. They will not tell the Russians to stop bombing. They will not tell Assad to stop bombing. They will demand Jordan to open its borders. In fact, the Syrians are fleeing towards Israel. Israel said that we cannot open our borders because we understand that the terrorists may come. But Israel will gladly help in whatever we can. Over the last few days, Israel conducted an operation in the depth of Syria where we brought tents, we brought food, we brought medicine, we brought some first aid instruments. Israel is helping Syrians. Those who've been our enemies are now being aided by the Israelis, while their own people and their friends are killing them. Not only that, over the last 48 hours, Israel also managed to get some wounded Syrians, amongst them several children, into Israel, and we're treating them in Israeli hospitals. So Israel is treating the wounded Syrian children and is giving food and medication to the Syrian people. And I cannot say that about Russia, about Assad, about Iran, about Hezbollah, or about Turkey. So we're watching something that is going on, and the Syrians themselves, they already know. If we want to find peace and remedy and help, we'll come to the Israeli side. They are the only ones that we know that will never, ever kill us. This is what the Syrians know. By the way, that's what also the Palestinians know, but they will never tell the world. We treat in Israel many of the wounded children in Gaza. The Hamas is sending them out towards the border to get shot by Israeli soldiers. And then we take them and treat them because obviously that's not our intention, to shoot at children. We want to kill the terrorists, but the terrorist is using them as human shields. So that's what Israel is doing. This is this is what we believe in. This is our moral compass, and we will always do that as long as we can. So again, the Russians are bombing. The Russians are running the show on the ground and in the air, and the Shiite militias and Assad soldiers are just useless. Israel is keeping its eye open. You understand that as long as the war was going on the eastern part of Syria, we didn't mind. But what the problem is, the war is getting closer and closer to the Israeli side, to the Israeli border, to the Golan Heights. And this is where Israel is not going to allow neither an Iranian entrenchment nor a violation of Syria of the May 31st, 1974 disengagement agreement. This agreement is the last agreement Israel ever signed with Syria, territorial and military agreement. And the agreement limits the soldiers and the tanks and the artillery in certain areas around the border. And if Assad will take advantage of the situation, and if Assad is going to play games and move troops and artillery and tanks into areas where he's not allowed to according to the 1974 disengagement program or plan, then Israel will have to react. The Israelis already told both the Americans and the Russians that we will not tolerate a violation of the disengagement agreement. And we're in close contact with the Kremlin and with Washington. And it's very interesting. Israel is the only country in the world that both Russia and America are counting it, as of now, as close ally. The entire Russian command of the Russian army visited Tel Aviv not long ago to sit in. Let me even tell you more. And I know that to some of you it might sound very spooky, but there is a Russian officer in the Israeli headquarters of the army, and there is an Israeli one in the Russian headquarters in Moscow to be able to coordinate the Israeli actions in Syria. You must understand, Russia controls Syria today. And if Israel wants to hit the Iranians in Syria, we must make sure that the Russians will not interfere, interrupt. And so far it worked. And it worked because the Russians are in love with that collaboration. Make no mistake, the Russians are only taking care of their own interests. As of now, their interest is to keep the stability of Syria, and by doing so, they don't like the Iranian shenanigans, and they are allowing Israel to take care of Iran in Syria. The Russians are an ally of Iran when Iran stays in Iran. When Iran is in Syria, Iran poses a problem to the Russians. And as Prime Minister Netanyahu said in his latest interview, he said that for the Russians, the Iranians are a problem because they are a competition for the spoils of war. So Israel eyes, we do have problems on the Gaza border, by the way. They're sending kites and balloons. I mean, it's ridiculous. And they're sending kids to send it. And all they do is they create some brush fire around the area. But it's not really any major damage. And it's not a threat to the security of Israel or to the existence of Israel. They've never been so. That's why the real headache of Israel right now is on the northern border. And we also made it very clear to Iran and to the Hezbollah that if Iran is going to do something in Syria using Hezbollah, Israel will keep the right to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon. And Hezbollah, by the way, answered us that if we will attack Hezbollah in Lebanon, they reserve the right to attack us from Syria. This is exactly why we do not want Iranian entrenchment in Syria, because now we have the Iranian headache both in Lebanon and in Syria. Now, one more thing, and by the way, everything I mention, as you know, there is a biblical implication to it, because think about it. Although we always talk about the Ezekiel war, remember, for the Ezekiel war to take place, Damascus has to be destroyed, and that is Isaiah 17. And for Damascus to fall, then there has to be some sort of a threat coming from that area. And therefore I'm saying, we're watching what's going on in the north, we're watching Syria, because both the Iranians and the Hezbollah could take advantage of the situation and actually attack us from there. And Israel retaliation will be on the Syrian regime, whom we hold as responsible for what's going on in his own country. So very, very interesting to see this thing. Now, before I congratulate the Americans for their 242nd birthday tomorrow, I will tell you that the Israeli Prime Minister just today, I think, in an event, congratulated the American people for their embassy, for their anniversary, but also said that this is the first time since the America and Israel exist as sovereign countries. It's the first time that the American embassy in Jerusalem is receiving all the congratulations. This is historic. This is amazing. And I want to congratulate all my American friends. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day to all of you. Okay, one more thing, a couple more things. First of all, Prince William, as you know, visited Israel just a few days ago. And as he returned back home, he said he pledged to make peace in the Middle East his lifelong project after his historic 5-day trip to the region. Lifelong project. He vowed to not rest until he brings peace to the Middle East. Remember these words, because we're going to hear them coming more and more from young and charismatic European leaders. Now, he's not that young and charismatic in my eyes. And in fact, if you only saw what the Israelis said about how Britain, is so anti-Israel in the last few years in light of the growing Muslim population in it, and how Britain was anti the Jewish immigration in the 1930s into the land of Israel, you also need to know that at the same time, we are seeing how the trend is to bring a lasting peace to the Middle East. And remember that, because the Antichrist eventually will come as a man of peace who will introduce peace to the region. So that is, of course, that one. Now, I just congratulated the Americans for, of course, the 242nd birthday. And of course, I said that this is the first birthday that America has when Jerusalem is recognized by it as capital and the embassy is in Jerusalem. But we have some good news. It's not official yet, but apparently we're talking about the four countries, the Visegrad Quartet, Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, and so they are going to move their embassies to Jerusalem. This is an amazing thing. Again, this is the Visegrad group. You're talking about the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia. That's the fourth country. We're hearing from them after we resolved all of our problems with Poland about the Holocaust law that they soften now. We may see a move coming from the four of them together to move their embassies to Jerusalem in the very near future. And I'm talking about Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and the Czech Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an amazing move that is tearing the EU to pieces, because the official EU stand is that Jerusalem is not the capital of Israel. Jerusalem is the capital of both the Israelis and the Palestinians, and it should be divided between the two countries in their mind. And we're watching something very different. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, we're watching the dismantling of the EU as it is right now. And that's why France is pushing and Germany is collaborating with an establishment of a new force of 10 countries only that will not only have their own leader, but will have also their own military force. Very interesting. Listen and remember Daniel's prophecy about the 10 horns and about out of them comes the Antichrist himself. And we're watching how the EU, as of now, is not going to last for too long. The immigration crisis is the thing that divides it completely. Jerusalem is now going to be back on the table as those 4 countries are soon moving their embassies to Jerusalem. These are exciting news. Another thing you may never heard in your news is that the Saudi Arabians decided last week that they had enough with Qatar. Qatar, that little peninsula not far from Saudi, bordering with Saudi, a very, very wealthy Sunni country, decided to switch sides. Qatar decided to move from being an ally and a friend of Saudi Arabia to supporting, listen to this, supporting Iran, Turkey, Russia, and the Islamic Brotherhood in Egypt and in Jordan, and of course in Gaza itself. This is very, very interesting thing, and you understand that what we're watching is very interesting. Listen to what the Saudis decided to do. The Saudis decided, and of course, in the beginning, the world media thought it's a joke, but the Saudis decided to invest $750 million, and within 90 days to begin the work of a channel that will be in their territory, that will completely cut off the peninsula of Qatar from Saudi Arabia and create an island called Qatar. Now, the channel is not on the Qatari side, so the Qataris cannot say anything. The Saudis say, well, in our territory, we can dig whatever we want. The Saudis, they're talking about 60 kilometers, 200 meters wide, 20 meters deep. And we're talking about a project that they're planning on investing $750 million, and they want it to be done within a year. That's how angry they are with the Qataris. Ladies and gentlemen, this is unbelievable. And the more we hear, you see, now, after the Saudis and the Qataris were best friends and they know all the secrets of each other, now when they're not friends anymore, the Saudis are bringing all the dirty laundry outside. The Saudis are just telling us, they're telling us that the Qataris paid a lot of bribery, a lot of money under the table to FIFA, the football association, for the next World Cup games to be held in Qatar in 4 years. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that were paid under the table to the leaders of FIFA. Oh, not only that, we know about the funding of U.S. Institutions, research institutions, the funding of those, and the payment to American politicians to stand right there at the head of those institutions once they retire. Ladies and gentlemen, Qatar bought governments, Qatar bought banks, hotels, Qatar bought FIFA, sport clubs all across the world, and the Saudis decided enough is enough. The Saudis have their own TV network, Al Arabiya. The Qataris have Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is an amazing propaganda machine of the Qataris, and all they do is bashing the Saudis days and night. And the Saudis have had enough of that one. So we're watching some very interesting things that are happening on the other side. Now, since Qatar is helping Iran, and Iran is funding the Yemenites, and the Yemenites are attacking Saudi Arabia every day. By the way, today, a Saudi child got injured from a piece of a rocket that was flying from Yemen. The Yemenite Houthis are sending rockets towards Riyadh and towards other Jeddah and other Saudi cities almost on daily basis. Your news will never tell you that. The Saudis understand that the only people that will help them fight Iran are the Israelis. They understand that the former administration of America, as well as all of Europe, collaborated with Iran. They understand that it's hard to trust others but Israel. Israel is the only country that is determined to stop Iran and Iran's attempt to entrench itself in the whole region. Therefore, the Saudis are changing their tones right now. I'm watching Saudi military analysts and Saudi political analysts on their own TV saying clear and simple, like never before, that Israel not only has the right to exist, but the Palestinians are damaging themselves every time they say no. Because, and I mean, it's unbelievable how the Saudis knows the history very well, all the way from the time of the 1930s until now. They remember every moment that the Palestinians said no and the Israelis said yes. As our former foreign minister said, the Palestinians never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. This is quite sad. So we're watching drama in the Saudi-Qatari side right now. This is going to, by the way, Qatar, it's very interesting. It means an island. And it's very interesting. It's almost like a prophetic name to that place. And so we're watching that going on. And speaking, by the way, of the Palestinians saying yes or saying no, we just found one more coin, a coin that is talking about Israel and Zion, a coin that is from the last year of the Jewish revolt against the Romans in 70 AD, and it says on it in ancient Hebrew, "For the redemption of Zion." When was the last time you saw a Palestinian coin? When was the last time you saw "for the redemption of Allah" or Al-Aqsa or whatever? It's not there. It's baloney. It's a phony, it's a fake thing that the world has been feeding you for all those years, that there is a people called Palestinian, there was a land called Palestine. No such thing. The name Palestine was given to the region by Adrian Caesar, naming after the Philistines. It's nothing to do with Arabs or with Muslims. And if anything, I already quoted Nehemiah chapter 2 when it says that neither the Arabs nor all the other region have any rights, memorial, or heritage in Jerusalem. This is all baloney. When they see that serving their interests, suddenly they're super pro Jerusalem. But Jerusalem never ever meant anything to the Muslim leaders throughout the years. And nobody ever really lived here. They all lived elsewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, Jerusalem was, is, and will be the capital of Israel. And in fact, I'm working on a message now called, "Who did God give Jerusalem to?" And I know that a lot of you will probably automatically say, Israel. But the answer is quite interesting and may surprise you. It's not that he never gave it to Israel, but who did God give Jerusalem ultimately to? It's very interesting. We're going to talk about that shortly. I'm going to give the message, hopefully, in one of my teachings in New Zealand. And the minute I can, I'll post it online. Speaking of posting my teachings, we're happy that in just a few maybe a week or two, we're going to launch our Romanian and German and Portuguese YouTube channels, and we're very excited about that. Israel just passed a law cutting the funding to the Palestinian Authority over its payments to terrorists. Israel is collecting now all the taxes for the Palestinians, and we're giving them the money. we decided that all the money that they're paying terrorist families, we're going to cut it from the money that we collect. And this is a bold move because America legislated such legislation before Israel even did. The Taylor Force legislation that passed, the U.S. Congress stopped all funding of PA because the PA is funding terrorist families. The father of Taylor Force, that American ex-Marine that was killed in Jaffa by a Palestinian terrorist, the father just came today to Israel to celebrate, to be a guest of David Friedman, the ambassador of America to Israel. And just so you know, lawmakers gave final approval to measure deducting Abbas's payment to Palestinian prisoners and families of slain attackers from tax revenues collected by Israel. So it's important that you understand those things. And overall, it was a very peaceful week in Israel. And I want to tell you something. We're still growing, we're still prospering, and we're watching more and more and more and more countries asking to become partners with Israel. We've never seen it before. In the 70 years of Israel existence, we've never seen anything like that. Recent polls show that 80% of the Israelis not only feel satisfied, but they feel safe and secured. And I know that the media will try to portray Israel as a very, very unsafe place. But I want to tell you something. It is way more dangerous to live in Chicago today, or even in other parts of the world, than in Israel itself. Israel, what makes a country safe is the feeling of its people. You can have the biggest walls and you can have the best weapons and the greatest soldiers, and still if the people don't feel secure, then the country is not secure. And the Israelis feel secure and safe, and they're very satisfied. And this is funny because we Jews were not always satisfied. We love to complain, as you know, these are the jokes that we say. But I want to tell you something. We've never had it better. And yes, this is the calm before the storm. And yes, it is what Ezekiel saw when he described the war. Israel is safe, secure, and prosperous. So I'd like you all to understand that we live in unbelievable times. And I want you to remember that. And I want you to get excited about it. And I want you to understand, folks, that these are amazing days. It is the last hour. And some people cannot hear me. I guess it's your problem because all the rest can. So I just want you to get encouraged. These are days when it's so easy to get discouraged. And I want to encourage you. Everything around us is happening for a reason and for a season. Thank you. Now, just for you to know, a lot of people registered to our next year's tour to Israel, where I'm going to teach Bible in different locations. February and December are still having several openings there. Go and register. These tours will change your life. And our prices are a bit higher because they're including everything. Everything. You don't have to bring a dime with you to Israel when you come with us. Everything is included. It's up to you if you want to buy yourself something, but all the meals, all the food, all the hotels, all the sites, all the tips, everything is covered. So I want to encourage you to consider that. On our website. You have all the information you need, and you can contact us through the website, and we will answer all your questions. Apart from the 63-year-old and the 80-year-old that wanted to come to the young adults tour, I guess we've got enough applications. We received enough applications for our scholarships, and we're going to go through them and get the right people to be of the 25 that will win the scholarships for next year's Young Adults Tour. Thank you again for your prayers. Thank you for your support. Thank you also for remembering my health. I feel great, and I'm really ready for my big tour in Asia. So let's finish this update with the Aaronic blessing. All right, so let's do it. יברכך אדוני וישמרך. יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face towards you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance towards you and give you peace. His shalom, that peace that surpasses all understanding, that peace that the world cannot give, nor can the world understand. It's the peace that only can come from the Prince of Peace, the Lord of Peace, who can give you peace now and forever, here and everywhere. It is Yeshua, our salvation, Jesus. And in his name we pray. And all of God's people say, Amen. Amen. Thank you. God bless you. I love you. And shalom from Lisbon, Portugal. Bye-bye.